So if you're new to the business, I talked about this a little bit in the blog yesterday, and definitely go out and check the Gig Guide series on my website. But I want to talk about it here, and that's how to approach getting new work, how to sell yourself a little bit, and how to understand what you're selling. The number one thing I hear from people that are new to the business or trying to get into this business is about their audio chops. About their ability to mix, the various projects they've mixed, what they've done in their home studio, the beats they've made. And that's great. A brief mention that you have some experience in audio is fantastic. Assuming that that's going to translate to being able to mix a live event is just unrealistic. I've met a lot of really talented folks that do wonderful stuff with a laptop in their home studio. It's absolutely astonishing what younger kids are able to do given the resources and the tools they have today. It's mind-blowing what some people are able to do with just software and a pair of headphones. It's really, really amazing. But it has almost nothing to do with being able to lead an audio job. So what you've got to understand is this is an audio world we're talking about. We're talking about people and professionals that work in the audio industry. And if you approach somebody that's an A1 or an A2 on a job and start talking about mixing and all this other audio mixing and, oh, I've done recording and this, that, and the other, nobody cares. I hate to say it, but nobody cares that you can mix. Nobody cares about how good your ears are or any of that when you're first starting out. We're audio people. We assume that we're paying attention to the audio. You don't have to sell us on the fact that you listen and can discern one instrument for another. If you're good at your job, that'll get proven over time. So it's a huge mistake if you have just a couple moments to meet somebody new in the business. To talk about mixing audio is just such a huge waste of an opportunity. The things that you should be concentrating on when you meet somebody for the first time, and things you should be concentrating on if you're new to the business for yourself and just in general. You've got to be confident of the fundamentals. Signal flow is the number one thing that I think I see messing up young people. You've got to understand how signal gets from a microphone to a speaker. If you don't understand how that happens and the different steps along the way, at least to some level, you don't have to be, super advanced, but if you don't understand the basic stuff, like the difference between an XLR cable and a speak-on cable, what a mic pre does, how amplifiers connect to speakers and the ways of figuring out which amplifier to use in which situation. These are things you should have a basic understanding of. I've met so many people that claim to be audio people who mix at home or mix in the studio, so on and so forth, and kids and students I'm talking about here, but don't know the fundamentals of signal flow, the difference between balanced and unbalanced, shielded and unshielded cables. These are the fundamentals, and you've got to study them. This is not stuff that you should be hoping to learn on the job. Some of the more advanced stuff and some of the stuff you don't see as often. But understanding how to hook up something like a powered speaker, that's something you can figure out with a couple minutes on Google. There's owner's manuals for every piece of gear that exists available online. And if you don't take advantage of that and you come and introduce yourself to me and talk about the beats you made on your laptop and how you could totally mix this gig if you were given a chance, that'll probably be a pretty short meeting, unfortunately. The second thing that you should really be confident with and focused on when you're meeting somebody and trying to get new work is punctuality. It's probably really the most important part of the job when you're just starting out. We can teach you almost anything else, but it can't be taught how to get out of bed in the morning and get to work. You've got to do that on your own. You've got to be motivated and you've got to be on time. The old saying goes, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late, and that really should be just the base level for you in this business. You're going to be working in different places every day. A lot of times you're going to be commuting and traveling to different locations, different venues, different parts of your city. And if you can't get out of bed in the morning with enough time to get yourself ready and to the job site 15 minutes early, that shows a lot to the crew that's hiring you. I tend to think of a gig as a day. If somebody books you for a job, they booked a day. You want to get into this business, give them the day. If they say 3 p.m. call time, I'd be there at 2:30 if I'd never been there before. Personally, I like to arrive somewhere, have a chance to get a coffee if I need to use the bathroom after my commute, find the loading dock, maybe scope things out between the loading dock and where you're going. If you have the chance, you can check in with security a lot of times if you're at a hotel or a venue that requires that. There's all sorts of these little things that when it comes time for the call time and the truck's there and the door opens on the truck, if I've got to send my crew inside to sign in with security or any other number of issues that can come up, all of a sudden my entire crew is behind. If you're late, God forbid, you show up 15 minutes late to a call time. So being just a little bit late can really, really take a lot of time away from things like tuning a PA system or getting a proper sound check in, or me having a chance to really program a QLab playlist for sound effects. So be early, and more than that, understand and respect how important your job is as general labor, because that's generally where you're going to be working if you are just entering this business. Helping with load-ins, load-outs, and then assisting on gigs is going to be where you start. You're not going to be mixing anything for a while, and that's fine. You need to learn the fundamentals and be confident with all the different parts of a show and a job and how it all comes together before you get into that A1 position. The third thing that you should be really aware of and confident about your ability to follow through with is being reliable and being consistent. That's something that if you can convey that to me up front, I'm much more likely to take a chance and put you on a job. Reliability, you show up the same time with the same attitude every time you're hired. That's key to being a freelancer. You cannot show up to jobs and be down and complaining about stuff. That doesn't work in this business, unfortunately. People will just hire somebody else. If you can't be reliable in your work ethic and your attitude and your personality, you're going to have a really hard time getting callbacks. Nobody wants to hire the person that makes the job site a worse place to be. We all want to work with people that are positive, that are like-minded, that are talented, and that are pushing themselves to do better. And showing up as though this is a minimum wage job somewhere and complaining about things, adding drama to the event, just isn't going to get you hired back, unfortunately. And the consistency in doing that every day. This job entails a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, a lot of long days. You may not have work Monday and Tuesday of a week, but then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you might work 18-hour days back to back. Hopefully you're getting compensated for that appropriately. We'll talk about that in another video. Nobody wants to work with people, though, who can't be consistent from day to day. You've got to show up on Monday and carry that level of interest and excitement and work ethic and attention to detail all the way through to Friday. If we're doing a 4-day job, you can't show up and be all gung-ho on the first day and we're going to kill it and this is going to be great. And by the time the third panel discussion of the fourth day comes around, you're asleep under the table and not interested at all. It just doesn't work. It makes everybody's life miserable. You've got to try to keep your energy and your positivity up as the jobs progress and as you continue to get hired. And if you do that, you'll get called back more. Consistency is a huge thing, and it's a really big part of why certain crews stick together. You'll get a bunch of freelancers that you'll always see on the same crew together, or I'll get called by the same company over and over again. That level of consistency, when I know that we can go out and get something done and there won't be any additional drama, is just a huge boost. As I mentioned before, if you're just getting into the business, the job you're probably going to be looking at or aiming for should be general labor. Now, general labor can mean a lot of different things. I haven't really covered in this video, but there's a whole host of staff that works in the warehouse, and there'll be leads in those departments, heads of those departments, or a warehouse manager working with other general labor folks, doing things like equipment maintenance, packing trucks, all sorts of stuff that goes on there that makes a show possible. If they don't do that right, we don't get to have a show. If the wrong equipment shows up or it's been poorly maintained. A great way to learn an absolute ton about this business is to get a job in a warehouse. See that equipment coming in and going out, seeing how the equipment gets packaged together for shows, seeing how to repair and maintain that stuff can be a huge benefit over hanging out on gigs. If you can get a gig where you're doing load-ins and setups and then getting shop time, it may not pay as much as being on the job full-time, and it may not seem like as cool of a situation, but I guarantee you're going to learn more in the shop when you have time to take things apart, to repair things, and to really dig in detail. Really unfortunate part, but it is a part of being on job sites, is everything's happening with a deadline, a real deadline on a job site. When you go out on a gig, you might only have a matter of hours to a day or two to put together oftentimes an incredibly complex show. And you've got to integrate with lighting and video and all this other stuff that's going on. So if something breaks, we literally tag it and put it back on the truck. There's very few chances, unless we're in the middle of nowhere and we have no other choice, to do something like break out a soldering iron or a repair kit and try to fix something. Obviously, if it's just a little maintenance issue, we'll try to sort it out right there on the job site, but we definitely don't have time to dig in on any sort of deep level and do repairs or maintenance on a job. That's all handled in the warehouse. So you're going to learn a lot more there than if you come out on the job site and something's not happening correctly. As an A1, I can't take that as a teaching moment. I've got to get a solution and move on with my day. So get your fundamentals down, be punctual, be reliable, be consistent, and be positive. That's the biggest thing. Crews that are positive get so much more done and have so much more fun. It is such a nightmare. We did a job last week where we were a crew of about 6 working together with a house crew of another 6 or so people. And the house crew was fantastic. They were really nice except for one guy. And this one guy just right off the bat, even as we were unloading the trucks, just had this attitude about him. He didn't like us. He didn't like that we were in his venue. I don't know what his deal was. They were getting a ton of work from us, and we're just providing a specialty service for that event. So it wasn't like we were taking work from anybody, but this one guy just had this poor attitude towards us and towards the work in general, complaining about everything that had to be lifted, second-guessing every process that we had in place. And it just made the day so much longer, having to deal with somebody like that. When the rest of the crew is positive and talented and hardworking, that kind of stuff really drags down a gig. And don't be that guy.